This is Scott Krause from Earth Crisis, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we've got Brian Audley, guitar player of Incendiary. Now, I'm sure you've seen Incendiary in the news everywhere lately. They just put out their first album in 6 years. It's called Change the Way You Think About Pain, and it's a great record. Have you heard this thing? I defy you to listen to it and not want to flip things over in whatever room you're in. It's really good. This conversation with Brian is really good. We cover everything, the history of the band, the run of shows they did with Glassjaw fairly recently, the new record, everything. And that conversation is coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at New Scene Pod. Shirts. Pick up a shirt over at Death Wish Inc. Long sleeve, short sleeve, we've got it all. Reviews. Give us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And did you know that you can write a review on Apple Podcasts? If you write a nice review, I'll read it on the air. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. One Line Drawing has just announced tour dates in the northeastern U.S. and Canada. If that tour is stopping in your city, I highly recommend you go see it. I saw Jonah late last year, and it was one of the best shows I saw that year. Also, One Line Drawing and the Iron Roses are playing Motor City Pride Festival. The Iron Roses play on June 10th, and One Line Drawing plays on June 11th. For more information on that fest, head to motorcitypride.org, and for a full list of One Line Drawing tour dates, head over to their Instagram or the Iodine Instagram. Audio Karate, A Show of Hands EP is available now for pre-order, and the new single, A Show of Hands, is available everywhere to stream right now. Best X has a new single out, Tell Your Friends. That single is available on all streaming services. Check it out today. Why not? Sign up for the Iodine email list. You'll find out about everything first. For more information, head to the Iodine Instagram at Iodine Recordings or to the Iodine website at iodinerecordings.com. Also, don't forget to support this month's sponsor, Death Wish Inc. That's right, Death Wish Inc. I'm going to say it again, Death Wish Inc. Mad Honey have a new album coming out, Satellite Aphrodite. That'll be in stores worldwide on September 22nd via Death Wish Inc. and Sunday Drive Records. And you can hear a single from the record right now. It's called Fold, and it's on all streaming services. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. Converge, Axe to Fall, vinyl repress. This is one of their best albums of all time. Make sure you get your hands on that. Converge, Jane Live. It's Converge performing Jane Doe live at Roadburn Fest. How can you go wrong with that? That's out July 7th. Pre-order that. And of course, Loma Prieta, Last. That's out June 30th. I'm really looking forward to that. There's 2 singles out there. Listen to it, and listen to it today. For more information, head to the Death Wish Instagram at Death Wish Inc. or to the Death Wish website at deathwishinc.com. Okay. Make sure you check back in with me in segment 3. I'll catch up with you. I'll tell you how I'm doing. But right now, we are going to speak to Brian Audley of Incendiary. Enjoy. All right. We are here now with Brian Audley. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, Keith. Thanks for having me, man.
Yes, Brian, it's great to have you here. You know, there's many exciting things going on in your life. We've got a new Incendiary record coming out, Change the Way You Think About Pain. The first record since 2017, yes?
That's right. Yep, that's right.
That's very exciting. We've got some select tour dates coming up, all kinds of stuff. And Brian, we're going to get to all that. But first, let me ask you, how are you doing today?
Today, I'm doing good. We actually just got back into New York earlier around noon. So I don't know, it's about 5 or 6 hours ago. We were in Atlanta this weekend playing House of Disorder Fest. So we had a set on Sunday night. It was awesome. Got to play a couple new songs live. It was really fun and cool and gratifying seeing some of those new songs already begin to get a response from some folks. We flew back today, so apologies if my voice might be a little hoarse from all the yelling and fun from this weekend. But I'm doing good. We're back in New York now, ready to rock.
That's awesome. Who else played that fest? Who are some big names?
So Our Day, No Pressure headlined. Fury from the West Coast was out there playing a rare show. I don't think those guys play too much anymore. Magnitude, Raw Brigade, Life's Question, whole bunch of bands. It was cool. Pain of Truth, I think headlined Saturday, but unfortunately we weren't able to make that.
Did you take today off of work at least?
I did. Yeah. I'm back at it tomorrow, but today I had we had to fly back home and then, had to decompress a little bit.
You got to give yourself that day buffer.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot better about that. We used to do things at a ridiculous breakneck pace and scheduling. I mean, out of necessity, like, driving home overnight and like pulling up to an office on no sleep and going in for the day. But, we've gotten better about, treating ourselves a little better and trying to enjoy it a little more.
Do you still have to go into the office for your job?
Not a whole lot. My office is in Lower Manhattan. I'm in North Brooklyn, so it's not too much of a journey anyway. But no, I've been work from home for like most people for about 3 years now. I go in when it makes sense, a little less than once a week, maybe 2 or 3 times a month. But I enjoy it when I do, and there's a reason to be there. But otherwise, I'm very, very thankful of the work from home situation.
Yeah, me too. It's a godsend. I don't ever want to go back. I was working remote even before the whole pandemic thing, so I'm just locked in. Yeah.
You already had the playbook.
Were you working remote? That was as a result of COVID?
Yeah. I mean, otherwise it was a full time, 9 to 6 in the office, full time gig.
Oh,
yeah. Always has been for my whole career. Yeah.
What do you do?
I work in advertising technology. It's kind of the best way to describe it.
The fact that you're remote now, does that allow you to do more with Incendiary?
Yes, definitely. A lot of the writing happens like kind of spontaneously, where previously if I had an idea or something popped into my head, I would have to hum it into the, voice notes app on my phone so I didn't forget it. Whereas now in a work from home environment, I can turn around, pick up a guitar and get it recorded into the computer before I forget, or just, be able to work on things for a longer time and, just be more in control of my time and my schedule. That definitely opened up a lot of time to be able to work on music and do things for Incendiary.
Do people at work know about the band?
Yeah. I used to keep it pretty close to the chest and pretty private for a lot of reasons. But I've been working with the same company with a lot of the same people for a few years now, and inevitably it comes out, and unfortunately everybody is pretty supportive of it. I don't expect anybody to kind of understand it, but everyone is supportive of it. They're always asking me questions, especially when I'm traveling. So yeah, they are, I'm in a fortunate position where people are interested and supportive of it.
That's good. Does it ever get cringe? I don't know, sometimes if I'm talking to people about this music and they don't know it or understand, I'll explain the bands and they never know what the band is. And then I have to repeat the band name 2 times.
Yeah, it's 100%. Yeah. Definitely. But I've mastered that talk track and how to position it in a way people will hopefully understand. I can usually start pretty abstract and, okay, have you heard Rage Against the Machine? If yes, we'll kind of go from there. But I honestly, I still try to minimize it around work. I don't want to be the guy that's talking about their band all the time anywhere, because that guy is usually pretty lame. And, I don't want people to think my head's somewhere else and I'm not, focused on my career while I'm there. So I still try to keep it pretty private and minimal and keep the conversation moving when it does come up.
Yeah. Yeah, Rage Against the Machine is like a savior as far as mainstream music goes, because it's like the closest band you can point to give people an idea of what we're up to.
Yeah, yeah. And like, the other thing is like I found that like giving them less information is almost better because whatever they think I'm doing is probably more acceptable than what I'm actually doing to someone that's uninitiated. So I'm pretty coy about it and do try to keep it pretty quiet.
Has anyone at work ever looked up the band and then come back and said, "Wow, you're really up to some crazy shenanigans there"?
Yeah, kind of semi frequently. A little less actually in the work from home thing because you just kind of interact with less people indirectly than you would in an office. So I guess maybe that's one of the silver linings of the pandemic is people who, don't know me already around the workspace aren't trying to find out any more about me or don't even know I exist there. So it's kind of, maybe it's minimized some of that.
Yeah, a lot of those small conversations are gone, which is, I guess it's good and bad, but like mostly good. I went into the office, I don't know, 2 times last year. So there's not as much conversation as there used to be.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we definitely the culture aspect has definitely changed a lot and deteriorated a lot. But in some ways, I think it's kind of helped people, or in a lot of ways, it's helped people kind of keep their work in a healthier place and manage it and just keep it in a healthier place so it's not this all-consuming full-time thing, and you can kind of tune out and turn off and keep it in the laptop and not take it home with you.
Researching about the band, I was somewhat surprised that it's never been a full-time band, because any band on the level of Incendiary, I assume, did a full-time grind or is doing a full-time grind or is just out there touring all the time. But you guys haven't done that, right?
Nope. No, this band was I'll say part-time because to us it does feel very full-time, but yeah, it was always just been how do we do as much as possible within our, commitments and obligations in life, which, doesn't allow for extensive touring, but, we do try to cover as much ground as possible and put as much energy and time into the band as possible.
I feel like the landscape has changed in a good way because a band like yourselves, it's a good story. Like you said, I guess technically it's not full-time because you're not out there touring 300 days a year, but every spare moment that you guys have, I'm sure most of that is going into the band. So it's full-time in that sense. But
yeah,
look what you can accomplish now with the internet and social media and targeted tour dates and everything else. So even if we're a little older and even if we can't be out there touring 350 days a year, a lot can still be done.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually glad you said that. Yeah, I think there's this wasn't like a strategy to like not play shows. The strategy internally is like to us it feels like we're doing as much as possible and extremely busy and busting at the seams. Whereas I've gotten some feedback from peers and friends and other bands and stuff of like, oh, you guys got it all figured out. We want to do the Incendiary model, and like I think that's I'm flattered that they look at what the way we do things as something that may work for them. But, this isn't like a strategy of like how to play as little as possible and get a maximum return. Our intent and our strategy is play as much as possible, which, unfortunately with our obligations outside of the band only usually amounts to a handful of shows a year and some more sporadic dates here and there.
Yeah. So to you guys, that's full time. That's everything you can do.
Yeah. That's it.
And it's not like you can plan that. Like, oh, we're going to start this band. We'll get to 3 million plays by year 5, and then we'll play these key dates per year. Like, you can't plan that. These things happen organically.
Yeah, it was very organic and it was very slow, extremely slow. I'm not sure if people may understand, how long Incendiary has been a band. It's I think over 15 years at this point.
2007 you guys got started, right?
Yeah. Yep. And we played years worth of, bad shows, very little interest, outside of, some very local and regional interest. And, we didn't turn things down and kind of, accept that we were quote unquote, just a local band. Like if we would get an offer to, hey, come up to Haverhill, Massachusetts and play at Anchors Up, we're like, all right, well, let's see if we can do that. And, that would, eventually the radius of that would expand a little bit, and we would always just try to push and try to make it happen and not just, be complacent with, no, we don't tour, so we can't accept this offer. It's like, well, maybe let's think about it. Let's figure it out. If we take off a Friday and drive all night, we can get back in time for Monday. Yeah, maybe we can make it down to, I don't know, North Carolina on a weekend or something. So again, yeah, it was to us and our strategy, if there is one, is to just push it as hard as we can in our free time, because playing hardcore shows is like what this band was built on and what is still kind of like the most important, that's why we do it, is to be able to have those opportunities and keep getting cool offers to play new places and play to places where, we enjoy playing and we know people there enjoy seeing us and coming out. So it's about keeping that sustainable and, being able to do that as long as we can.
So how do we get started? It's 2007. We're in Long Island. Yes.
That's right.
How do you know the other guys? How do we meet? How does it get started?
So Brendan had actually started the band with Brendan is our vocalist. He had started the band with a handful of other guys that we were friends with. Just, from shows, from school, from the neighborhood, from the area, the larger kind of Smithtown area in Suffolk County. He'd started the band and the band had a demo. The other guys that he was doing it with, people were moving, people weren't as, committed and interested in doing the band in the capacity that Brendan wanted. Shortly after, the three of us, being myself, Rob, our other guitar player, and Dan Lamelli, our drummer, we all came on board. Just, when Brendan was looking for people, we were hanging out all the time anyway, and it felt really natural. I had some material that I was playing in another band called Soldiers for a while. And I had some material that wasn't really a fit for Soldiers, but could be for something else, something a little more 90s, a little more dissonant, a little more angular. And then that's what ended up going into the Amongst the Filth 7-inch. And that's the first release. That was our first 7-inch. That's the first release that has, for the four members that are still in the band today, on it, and kind of like the real jumping off point for the band.
So where are you playing in the early days? Are Long Island? Are you playing in the city at all?
Yeah. Long Island a bunch. I mean, that was really the goal. Like we had all been doing bands in different capacities and toured in different capacities. And we were starting to slow down that part of our lives. We were getting careers and getting apartments and, building relationships. So the full-time touring aspect of it was slowing down, but I mean, we all still, like, this is all we do, right? Like we still wanted to write songs, be part of the conversation at home, play with our friends' bands at home, play with our friends' bands who are on tour when they come through Long Island. We were still active and we still wanted to be part of the whole thing. So yeah, we played Long Island a lot. We did play Brooklyn, Queens, and the city a fair amount for a band of our, again, limited interest, we'll call it at that point. But, we were scrappy, we didn't really turn much down. Like we would play, shows in Queens, shows in Brooklyn, some shows in the city, and really just trying to say yes to as much stuff as possible.
Yeah, it's so hard to find people on the same wavelength as you, multiple people, especially in a band, because I don't know, it just seems like there's always a roadblock. One guy can't do it. One guy's married. One guy has kids. So you're just limited in what you could do. So it's always a miracle when it comes together and everyone's on the same page and we can just keep running for this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the key, and the only thing that has made this work for as long as it has is everybody being on that same page. Even as everyone's lives continue to evolve and move on to different chapters, everyone's still, this is a priority in everybody's life. Everybody makes the time for it, and it's because we love doing it. It's the only thing all of us like really care about, really enjoy. It's very fulfilling, very validating. And it gives us, some of the best opportunities and best experiences we've ever had in our lives. And we get to, share them all with each other, who are best friends still, 15 years into this. So we're really fortunate for all that. So
how old are you when that 7-inch is out that has the original four members, when things really start to get going? How old are you at that time?
I'm trying to remember when that came out. Came out in 2008, so I am 24. Yeah.
So at 24 years old, you are already settling into a career and getting an apartment?
Yeah. Yeah. And candidly, I mean, I almost felt a little late for us. I was definitely overstaying the welcome, living at my parents' house that long.
I'm impressed because I was fucking around until I was like 29. I moved out when I was 21, and I would always have a bunch of roommates, but I didn't start taking any kind of career seriously until I was, I don't know, 28, 29, 30.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's tough on Long Island too, because like opportunities to live on your own and apartment housing situations that are affordable for young people on Long Island are very few and far between. Which is why, some of us started migrating closer to the city. Brendan was living in Queens for a while and then Bushwick. And then, over time, more of us had moved closer to the city for, work and housing opportunities. But yeah, I mean, I fucked around a lot, right after college. I was touring with, my friend's band called This Is Hell. I hit the road with them, just roadieing, tour managing, merch stuff. For about 2 years, did several full US tours, went to Europe with them, and they were like pounding the pavement, man. They were out there putting in the work on the road, 7, 8, 9 months a year. And I was along for that whole ride. So I after I graduated college, I definitely fucked around for a good 2 years or so. But like I mentioned earlier, like when I kind of realized like I need to slow that down and kind of establish and build my own life now. Doing hardcore and being in a hardcore band and participating in the Long Island hardcore scene, which is something that is incredibly important to me, was still a priority. So I needed to find a way to keep that part of my life. And what that turned into was Incendiary and the perfect fit, both sonically and with the schedule that we wanted to keep.
So there's still a number of years before we get to the first full length and signing with Closed Casket. So what'd you do? Did you just keep playing shows anywhere you can get an offer? And how far would you guys travel to play?
Yeah, basically. I mean, so there was before the first full length on Closed Casket, before Cost of Living, we did do an LP before that, called Crusade, which came out in 2011, I believe. 2009. Oh wow, Jesus, I was way off. It came out in 2009. Yeah, we did an LP. We did, some DIY touring. Say under the same, circumstances though. We'd get an email to, hey, do you want to come play Orlando? And we're like, hey, fuck it. Like, let's try to make that happen. Like, we have like a North Star to kind of base this whole thing around. Let's try to fill in some dates and do it on our own. So yeah, we were doing some DIY touring. Again, nothing extensive, maybe, 7 days, 7 dates at a time or something like that. And yeah, just trying to play as much as possible. By then we had started to get a little bit of traction at home. Some of our original songs were getting reactions, not just some of the covers we would sprinkle in to the shows just to get some people warmed up to us. So we were beginning to get some traction. But man, I mean, the short answer to all that is we were playing a ton of bad shows, like more bad shows than I think it like would have broken most bands, to be honest. But we were just stubborn. We loved doing it regardless of the reaction we were getting. We loved hanging out with each other and getting to travel and fuck around on the weekends. So, we kept doing it longer than many others might have survived. And then, when Cost of Living came out, that was really night and day. The band before and after that were extremely different things, and the opportunities we got were extremely different. And that was really a huge turning point for the band.
And that's what you have to do. I made the mistake when I was younger. I would think like, oh, I don't want to play these bad shows. We need to be playing like good shows with good bands at good venues. But I didn't realize you have to like put in the work for those things to happen. Like whatever show you're playing, you got to win that crowd over, and then you move up to hopefully something bigger.
Yeah, and we would get chances too, like the promoters who were booking on Long Island, and even in the city in Brooklyn at that point, like they would offer us some cool shows, and again, we were just trying to say yes to as much as possible. But yeah, there was a lot of, we were met with limited warmth when we first started, and like the type of hardcore we were doing wasn't really that popular at the time. Like a little more heavy metallic 90s influenced hardcore. Like there was a few bands like Shipwreck and Foundation. Those are the bands where we were kind of like, oh shit, like other bands are like, get it and are influenced by the sound and are kind of like bringing it back and drawing influence from the things that we're influenced by. So there was a few, but like by and large, like our style of hardcore like wasn't extremely popular at the time.
What was popular at the time? Because I was like drifting for a while. I was listening to a lot of post rock, and I didn't get back into more heavier stuff, I guess, until around 2016, 17. But and now heavier metallic stuff is definitely back in, which I'm happy about because that's my shit. But what was popular back in the early days of Incendiary?
Yeah, so it was like, when we were starting off in like, 2000, pre-2010 or right around there, you were kind of seeing the tail end of like the more melodic type hardcore stuff, like the Modern Life is War type, like epic sounding hardcore, for lack of a better term.
Maybe like Have Heart, stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's a great reference point, actually. So that stuff was kind of like winding down while the more New York hardcore, Madball influenced hardcore was starting to kind of rise. So we were kind of like right at that intersection point. And I mean, fortunately, now that I kind of think about it, like we were pretty well embraced by the New York sounding stuff, by the OGs too. Like we would get opportunities to play with Madball, and we were invited to play the Black and Blue Bowl at Webster Hall more than once, I think 2, if not 3 times. And so we were being embraced by the New York stuff that was starting to come into popularity, and even the more local bands like Backtrack is the best example. Backtrack and Incendiary started around the same time. We kind of came up doing a lot of the same things together, playing a lot of those bad shows together. And they were the ones that were able to kind of take it and hit the road with it and get it out there and really kind of fly the flag for Long Island and what was happening on Long Island at that time. While we were, doing the best we could at home and, in places that were a 4 or 5 hour drive away from us.
You said early on the reception wasn't completely warm. What was it? Was it the scene? Was it this melodic thing was still happening? Was it that you guys were just new? Like, what was it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was people disliked us. It was just like kind of like ambivalence and indifference. And yeah, it was just a lot of taking what we could get in terms of shows, which weren't always big ones. Yeah,
it's weird. It just takes, I think sometimes it takes like someone else mentioning you, or like you get on a big show and suddenly people are paying attention, right? Because like sometimes I'll mention to people like, hey, I do a podcast and I talk to these bands, and they're like, oh, that's great, I don't care. But then they'll hear about it from someone else and they're like, oh, that's you?
Yeah,
and I'm
it's like validating. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, see, I told you.
I mean, I'll bring them up again, but Backtrack was definitely a big supporter and advocate for Incendiary. Again, they were out there hitting the road, building relationships in, scenes that were pretty hard to break into and be accepted by. Like they helped us get over and get opportunities to play in like Richmond and Atlanta. Like again, traditionally, like those scenes have always been strong and always produced bands that Incendiary has always looked up to. But without having someone kind of vouching for you, it can be tough to get a scene like that to take a chance on you. And they really helped us kind of have scenes like that warm up to us and give us some opportunities to play there.
So it's still like that as far as the scene goes? Because I know when I was coming up in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was like pure, quote unquote, pure hardcore, like the New York hardcore stuff, the real tough stuff versus the crossover stuff. And the crossover stuff was looked at as not real hardcore. And in Philadelphia, especially, it was hard to like break into that scene unless you knew somebody or you sounded a certain way. So I guess it's still like that to a degree, huh?
I don't know if I'm not going to comment if it's still like that. Cause I mean, we're talking about 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
It was more like that back then. But, now like I'd be hesitant to comment again. I'm not going to say we're like we're not out there enough to kind of really observe what's going on in these other scenes, so I'd be hesitant to speak on it.
Yeah, in my mind, 2010 is like still new.
Yeah, it is not, my friend. we are old.
Yeah, like my perception of time is so messed up. I feel like 2010 was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, right.
But not the case. So we're plugging along, we're playing shows, we're getting out there. How do we get the attention of Closed Casket?
Yeah, so the Closed Casket relationship was, I think we were both kind of like looking at each other at the same time. I remember Brendan met someone that was friends with Justin, who runs Closed Casket locally in Brooklyn, and kind of was put onto the label, and we started following it just in the sense of like, this seems like a good fit for us. Like, they don't do a lot of releases, but the releases they do, they put a lot into. Everything looks great, everything sounds great, it's presented in a very professional and buttoned up manner, and it doesn't seem like they have expectations for touring. They kind of just want to put out things that they believe in and care about. So we were both kind of looking at each other, and after Crusade, the only opportunities we really had to release new music came in the form of split 7-inches. So we released, between Crusade and Cost of Living, we released 3 split 7-inches with 3 different bands on 3 different labels. And people might think that's crazy, and maybe it is, but again, we were scrappy, and we were trying to take whatever we could get. And at the time, that's all the attention and interest we had. Like, yeah, we'll do 2 songs for you and see how it does. So the first one was with our friend's band Suburban Scum from New Jersey. The second one was with a band called Unrestrained from, I think, Portland, Oregon, definitely Pacific Northwest, that a label that we had met from upstate New York had taken some interest in. And then the third one was from Justin at Closed Casket Activities. And that was kind of like it was the start of our relationship. It's like, okay, let's do a split 7-inch, see how that does. And then see what we can do, see what it looks like down the road. And that's what, became our split 7-inch with Zabalba, a band that we became very fast friends with, still are friends with, really see a lot of each other, see a lot of ourselves in them, in the way that we've kind of done our bands and grown our bands. But yeah, that 7-inch did well. Everybody was happy with it. And that kind of led into an opportunity to do an LP for Closed Casket, which was Cost of Living.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you just got to get out there and put out what you can with whoever you can.
Yeah. Again, it's just like saying yes, trying to say yes to as much as possible, and take opportunities. And yeah, I mean, I almost miss it a little bit, because we were so scrappy and just like, we didn't overthink anything. It's just, this guy wants to do this. Are we down? Yeah, fuck it. Let's try to make it work. Like, we were very scrappy, and just trying to say yes to as much as possible.
It's strange how it works. In the earlier days, you're doing more work, right? You're out there a lot more, but somehow it's simpler. And now later, decisions are much bigger, even though you're probably playing less shows and releasing less music.
Yeah, because there's the stakes just feel a little higher. We have an expectation that we want to live up to, and we're always trying to like improve and like refine our sound, both on the records and in the live show. So, the stakes just feel higher. We've been a band for over 15 years, and we're like trying to make sure that we're giving people who still want to come out and see us and who still support us like a reason to keep it fresh and keep it interesting and keep putting something out there that's quality, and delivering it in a way that it needs to be delivered with urgency and with energy.
Well, it's working, because, during my research, I watched a video of you guys from last year, I think, and I was amped.
Nice.
The crowd was too.
Yeah. We still got it, man. It feels, it feels good. We're definitely, we're getting older, but we're definitely not getting slower. And I think that was really kind of the goal and the vision going into the record we just recorded, was to take it in a more aggressive and abrasive and energetic direction.
So after the band releases Cost of Living, I assume we see a pretty big jump.
Yeah, like I said, it was really night and day after that. The response, I mean, nobody was expecting it to land as well as it did with as many people. We started getting offers from every festival that was going on at the time, which allowed us to, cover a lot of ground and make it to a lot of places that we honestly never thought this band would go to, based on the strength and the response of that record. And, we used to have a very nihilistic approach to it back then. And I think we still do to an extent. But, I remember getting offered Rainfest, which was a big fest they used to do in Seattle, which was honestly one of my favorites of all the fests we played. I have extremely fond memories of that fest every year that we were part of it. And just thinking like, flying out there and being like, well, never thought we'd play here to begin with, and we may never be back here again. So if anybody cares about these songs, like this might be it. And I think we kind of carried that energy with us a lot around the cost of living stuff. And I think that really kind of helped drive some of that urgency I was talking about with like how we want this material to be delivered live.
Wow. Yeah. That's like a great approach. It's like, we're on this wave. We don't know how long it's going to carry us. We don't know how long we can do it. So we just got to give it our all.
Yep. Yeah, that was really it. And that was basically the mentality and the outlook for most of the cost of living era, quote unquote. And there's still a degree of that in the way that we carry ourselves now, for sure.
Do all the guys work full-time gigs like you?
Yep. Always have. Again, yeah, like the band is, we've always been on the same page, but like there's never really been a change in, there's never really been a change in our obligations or commitments outside of this. We started the band under a certain set of circumstances, and those circumstances are largely still, what we build around and base our schedules around now.
That's pretty amazing considering how long you've been a band, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's getting a little different now. People are buying houses and starting to have kids, and that obviously changes things. But that's life, and it just makes the time that we are able to put into it that much more special when we can get together and play.
I discovered the band, I think, in 2018. There was a period where I wasn't listening to a lot of music, and I wasn't listening to a lot of heavy music. And I was also just in bad shape mentally and everything else, kind of isolated. And then once I snapped out of that, I would just dig into Spotify and Spotify radio. And I remember hearing 1,000 Mile Stare and Front Toward Enemy. Now, that is the jam right there.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
And it's like one of your most popular songs I can see on Spotify numbers. So I guess a lot of people agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually glad you mentioned that. We've been closing our set with literally the same song from Cost of Living, which is Primitive Rage, since it came out. It had it was getting a big reaction live, and we were kind of painted into a corner in a certain capacity, because it's like, we can't really put this anywhere else, because then the rest of the set is just going to be anticlimactic. But literally Sunday, for the first time, we're like, we're doing it now. New record, like we're playing Primitive Rage early in the set, and we're closing with Front Toward Enemy, because we got to push the new stuff. And like, we feel like that song has kind of earned that spot now. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because literally 2 days ago was the first time we switched up the set list with our closing track for the first time in years. And it was to kind of put Front Toward Enemy in that spotlight.
Good choice.
Yeah, it worked, man. I couldn't have been happier. All of us were very, we were a little, all right, I guess we got to do it. Let's see. And then it made sense, and it felt really good after. We were all very happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a new record now. Like, I feel like you have to make those changes, right? Because we got to get people onto the new stuff, and we have to move forward.
I totally agree. Yeah. And, I look at it as like kind of like chapters now. Like each record has like its own, excuse me, like, unique color identity, and the way that we kind of roll it out. Like, I wanted to feel like a new chapter for the band.
Is there any blowback from fans for that change? Like, does anybody like, oh man, I want this to be the song? Like, do you hear any of that?
Nah, I mean, I don't. It's not to say it doesn't happen or it's out there, but I don't. I just base it on what the response is live. If we played that song and it absolutely bombed at the end, and maybe we'd reconsider, but it definitely held its weight.
Has that ever happened where you arrange the songs in a certain way and you just see that it's not working, so you got to go back to the drawing board?
It has, but candidly, the fact that we don't play that many shows doesn't really give us enough time to like test material. Like if we were on like a 30-day full US tour, we could like rotate in different songs and see how they do. But we have to take a pretty conservative approach to the set to maintain the energy and kind of go with the songs that we know connect with people live, because we don't really have the luxury of time to be able to test things out. I mean, that's one of the things I'm most excited about for the new record, is to start, experimenting with that a little bit and sprinkling in some new songs into the set. Again, on Sunday in Atlanta, we played Echo of Nothing for the first time live, and man, it's just like it's nice having that feeling again of like the little bit of nerves doing something new. It keeps you more engaged in the set when you have something new to do. And it was really interesting and very validating seeing, these new songs already begin to get a response from people in the crowd.
I love that. Yeah. How do you decide what you're going to put into the set before you have a chance to see reactions live? Do you just go by the vibe of the song when you guys are practicing it and like how it feels to everybody?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's that strategic. I mean, now it's literally like, well, these are like the quote unquote singles from the new record. So these are the ones that, people have had an opportunity to hear now. So now is the test to see if it connects live. I'm not sure how we'll approach that with the new record. It's definitely, we're going to have to make some tough choices and, start, swapping out some older songs for some of the newer ones, which is something I always kind of took pride in. Like our sets always had a pretty comprehensive coverage of all of our releases. We would still play songs from some of our splits. We would play songs from, at least 3 or 2 of the 3 existing LPs at every show. But, the set's still only going to be 30, 35 minutes. And now we got 10 new songs to play with. So we're going to have to start making some hard choices.
When you have 2 million, 3 million, 4 million plus plays on songs on streaming services, as you guys do, how does that translate? Does it, you're on the label, so I assume you have a booking agent and you have a lot of connections, but does that translate into anything? Now, we know it doesn't translate into money, right? Because Spotify doesn't pay anybody except Drake, I guess.
Yeah,
but do you get any like strange offers or good offers or anything like that?
Yeah. We're really starting to see the impact of the playlist effect when it comes to Spotify as we're releasing these new songs. I mean, again, I mentioned I work in, advertising technology. So like, following data and like letting data tell a story is kind of like what I do professionally. And, getting to see that paired with music, let alone my music, is kind of like this intersection of 2 things I really care about. So seeing the effect that things like that have on music and artists and streams is pretty interesting. Thankfully, this is not, Incendiary is not something that any of us are doing for or relying on for income. So it's kind of just, about growth and seeing how many people we can get this music in front of. But man, it is pretty wild seeing like the impact that getting on a playlist or 2 will have to the amount of people that your song gets in front of.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I can see that people really love the new single, Bite the Hook, right?
Yeah, that was the first one that we released when we announced the record. So that one's been out for a little over a month now, I think.
Yeah. I was just listening to it earlier today, and I wanted to flip things over in my room. So
that's what it's all about.
Great job.
Thank you.
So we have the new album coming out, Change the Way You Think About Pain, which is coming out May 26th. Yes?
That's correct.
Yes, on Closed Casket Activities, of course. This is the first new album since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
What have you guys been up to? What's going on? Now, were we delayed by COVID? Were we busy with other stuff? Tell us the story.
Yeah, with the way Incendiary, runs our bands, we don't really, adhere to traditional album cycles or calendars or things like that. So, we put out records when we feel like we have something to say, when we feel like we have material that's strong enough and ready to be shared and put out there. And if anything, I think COVID and the pandemic may have in some ways accelerated the release of this record. I'm not so sure there would have been a 4th LP if not for, us having the time to putting the time that we were putting into live shows, putting that into writing and rehearsing and coming up with new music, because that's like a decision we would have to make when we would commit to doing a record. Like, okay, if we're going to do this, then that, once a week practice for the next show, that has to be a writing practice. So that means we're not taking on shows while we get this done. So when there was no shows to speak of, it allowed us to kind of put that same energy into writing and rehearsing and getting this material together. And before we knew it, we had enough. We had enough for an LP, and we felt strongly about the material. It was coming out. It was coming out in the vision and within the goal that I had in mind. And yeah, it all just felt right.
That's awesome. Yeah. Were you writing before the pandemic, or were you just focusing on practicing and playing shows?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, kind of like always writing, right? Like always coming up with little riff ideas and trying to document things and making notes and things that you want to come back to. So kind of like always writing. But yeah, without the shows, that practice used to be, or could at times feel like an obligation, like, oh, we got the show coming up. All right, Thursday night, let's get together, put together a set. Everybody's tired from working all week. It's not always a good conducive to being creative in a situation like that. But, again, you take shows out of the equation, and no one had even really hung out with each other in a while because of the pandemic. Practice quickly became like the most fun and exciting thing any of us had going on at all during that time. So we were really coming into it with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm for it too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I get what you're saying about the scheduling. Like the way my life is built, if I'm going to introduce something new, something else is going to have to stop.
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
Yeah. How do you guys write? How does it start? Do you send things back and forth online at all? Do we just get together in the room and write? How does it work?
We're definitely not a get in the room and see what happens band. Like jamming just doesn't work for us. It's like a time thing. Like we have to be efficient with the time that we put aside for this. The way it works, usually we'll come in with an idea, a riff, a skeleton of a song, show it to everybody. And then, the other guys will kind of help fill in the blanks and help connect the pieces together and, flesh it out from there. This one in particular, Dan, our drummer, and I started getting together in June of 2020. Once things in New York started feeling a little safer and we were kind of more comfortable with seeing each other, Dan and I started getting together in June and working on some of the material I'd put together and a few of the ideas that were kind of out there, before everything closed down, and worked on it for, basically until like the end of the year or so. And then around, the other guys were coming like once in a while, but Dan and I were the ones who were really kind of like going at it every week. And then around November, December, towards the end of the year, then the other guys started coming more regularly and participating more regularly. And that's when we really kind of committed to, okay, we got like 5 or 6 right now. Like, let's do it. Let's commit. And let's say we're doing an LP and get this across the finish line. So that's kind of when it really started to take shape and become like a real thing.
So when you and Dan are working on stuff, hashing out the skeleton of this thing, does it ever get difficult when the other guys come in and everybody's throwing in different ideas?
Yeah, it can be. I admit I get very married to my ideas, and, when I feel strongly about something, like I have a hard time letting it go or compromising. And it's also because like, I feel like before I bring things in, like I really refine it a lot on my own. Like I'll try it every different way, and then I'll land on something and be like, this is the best way to execute it, to execute the idea. And, so when I bring something into me, it's like a finished thing. It's like, no, trust me guys. Like I tested it out. I tried all the options and all the permutations. Like this is the way to go. And then when there's like another idea about it, I don't always react so well to that type of input.
Was there ever an idea or something you came up with that you were really married to, but the majority decided to go in a different direction and you had to drop it?
Nah, nothing. Not that extreme. And again, it's about having the best material and the best idea. So nothing. I learned where to choose my battles, and everybody goes home happy.
Yeah, because I feel like the best idea will ultimately bubble to the top. Like there's been times where I'm stuck on something and someone introduces something new, and I'm like, this is annoying. I had it done, but the new thing ends up being better. So I don't have to like dig my heels in.
Yeah, and it'll be like obvious when something's better. And like Will Putney, who we recorded the last 2 records with, he's like amazing at being that kind of unbiased third party that's also invested in the project being as good as it can be. He's absolutely great at that. Whether telling he earned my trust very early on both records with, understanding the idea and helping me realize it. And he's just great about giving that feedback and challenging me and challenging us when we need to be challenged, and helping us make things as strong as possible without, feelings aside.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, having an outside voice like that, producer especially, was really got to help things.
Yeah, for sure. And Will's the best.
You guys opened for Glassjaw for one of their anniversary shows, right?
We actually got to do 6 dates of their anniversary tour, which for Incendiary is like a fucking world tour. Yeah.
How was that? When do you get word about that?
That was one of the coolest things we've ever done. I'm a huge Glassjaw fan. They played the first hardcore show I went to. My musical tastes have kind of evolved with their sound. I've always been, inspired with, the way they operate their band, administratively, the way they, kind of have like a similar model where they don't do a whole lot, but when they do, they make it feel like an important thing. So yeah, a friend of ours and a friend of the band's, works with Glassjaw and helps put those shows together. He obviously knows about Incendiary. And yeah, we got the phone call, and, it was really an ideal offer because, Glassjaw now is on a similar plan as Incendiary, where they're trying to cover some ground, but also not be away from home for, long stretches at a time. So they gave us a bunch of dates and were really very generous about like, you guys are welcome to join as many or as little as you can do. And we were like, we're going to do as many of these goddamn things as humanly possible, because this is one of the coolest opportunities that's come across this band in our history. And we were able to do, I think it was a total of 6 shows with them. That's
amazing. Now, You said Glassjaw played the first hardcore show you ever went to.
Yep.
When was this?
It was 1997. It was at the Center Reach VFW Hall. Center Reach is the town I'm from on Long Island. And the show was Shutdown, Glassjaw, 1 for 1, Motive, and a few others.
Wow, great show.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Were you listening to the music before this, or was it the show that kind of sold you on everything?
It was the show that sold me on everything. It was one of those, like, I heard that there was something happening at a show happening at the VFW, and went in totally blind and clueless and left with like having my mind absolutely blown. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I remembered Glassjaw said or what they sounded like or anything, but like among all the things that blew my mind at that, like they were definitely part of it.
That's amazing. The same thing happened to me. The first big hardcore show I went to, I had absolutely no idea what to expect. And I was completely scared for my life during the show because there was a lot of antics during it. And hey, look, 20 plus years later, I'm still listening to everything.
Yeah, I miss that though, man. I miss that feeling of like, I'm doing something, because it was a VFW. I'm in my town. I'm like, oh, I'm doing something here I'm like not supposed to be doing. Like it felt cool.
Yeah, I think that's missing in. I hope there's still thriving local scenes out there with a lot of amazing bands playing. I don't know if there is because, well, I'm not living in those towns anymore, but I hope it's still happening.
Yeah, I think there is. And I can only really speak to Long Island. And Long Island's culture was always in the VFWs and the catering halls and whatever. And there's definitely still a value placed on that, even though venues like Amityville Music Hall, which is a bar, are the backbone of Long Island hardcore right now, and a stable institution that open their doors to shows every night of the week. There definitely is still like a reverence for the VFW show. I know Scanlon's been working hard. He's a promoter on Long Island. He's been working hard to get the Massapequa VFW having shows and opening their doors again. I guess the best example, 2 weeks ago, Silent Majority, like legendary Long Island band, right? After their main Brooklyn reunion show was announced, they announced a VFW hall show at the Massapequa VFW. And like, just to kind of honor that kind of tradition and that vibe and that feeling that everybody still loves and still wants to experience again. Like they played at the VFW and it was awesome.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. And it must have been amazing for you. I mean, Glassjaw plays the first hardcore show you ever go to. I assume they're playing a lot of everything you wanted to know about Silence material.
This is before that. This is
even before.
Just like maybe Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but like just straight up hardcore band. Yeah.
Ah, But it must have still been just mind-blowing to end up on that anniversary tour all these years later.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'd been a fan of the band and seen them evolve and been to all the shows along the way. So yeah, I mean, definitely. And I mean, Beck is a guitar player. Like, even if you don't hear it in the stuff Incendiary comes out with, like, huge inspiration, and just nobody plays like that guy. And to get to watch him play every night and have him, like, he cared about Incendiary. He would give us very, like, constructive criticism and, like, watch our set and, like, give a fuck above and beyond, you know, his Call of Duty, was very flattering and just an amazing experience all around.
Wow. Yeah. Glassjaw, you know, when I think 2002, I was into their first record on Roadrunner, and then, of course, Worship and Tribute. But Glassjaw, more than most bands, I think, just hugely, hugely influential, and were just the top of the top in 2002 and now still.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm glad you said that, and now still, because the record they put out in 2017, Material Control, personally, I feel like it's a bit overlooked, but they put out a ripping post-hardcore record that is, like, laser focused at the exact slice of hardcore that I love, that kind of little more dissonant, angular post-hardcore, but very New York sounding still. And they absolutely nailed it, and I fucking love that record. Yeah,
absolutely. And I really appreciate them both in musically and just, you know, you mentioned just how they handle things, and I don't know them, but I can just tell that they take it very seriously.
For sure.
So me and everyone else takes it very seriously. Like you see them live, they look good, they look professional. They have some of the best looking merch I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They have great style and aesthetic, so, you know, they've got it all.
The whole package, yep.
So, Incendiary. Now we're talking about the new record. We've got that coming out. We must be pretty excited about that, obviously.
Yeah.
The people are very excited based on what I'm seeing online.
Yeah, it's hard. It's always hard to say, but, you know, all the feedback I've seen has been very positive, and it's very flattering and nice to get it out there. I mean, we recorded the record almost a full year ago, last May. So we'd been keeping it close to the chest and keeping it pretty private, you know, because we didn't want, even within our friend circles, right? Like, we didn't want people to be kind of over it by the time it actually comes out. So we haven't really gotten much feedback at all on it until very recently. So starting to see some of the reactions to it coming in has been very nice and flattering.
Yeah, that's a smart plan. Like, you don't want your friends to be sick of it before it even comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Or like anybody. So like we really downplayed it. We didn't really share links or show anybody. You know, a couple close buddies. I showed my car, which is just like one of my favorite experiences about having new music, or any of my friends putting out new music. I really value that. The, like, hey, come check out this new stuff I want to show you. And, like, so being able to do that with a couple of my close friends, and, you know, qualified opinions, like the feedback I was looking for and the people I did want to share it with prior to its release were other people in bands and songwriters that, I admire and I identify with, like, getting their feedback. People that have made records and written songs before, sending it to some of my friends who just like hardcore for them to tell me, yeah, man, sounds sick. Like, that doesn't give me a whole lot. I'm glad they like it, but, like, sharing it with other musicians, songwriters, and people who've made records and getting their feedback on things like the production and the arrangements and stuff like that. That was really what I was looking for with the handful of people that I did share it with.
Yeah. I mean, as you're growing and progressing as a band, you want to hear from other songwriters, maybe people more experienced than you, maybe people on your level, to just, get ideas, or that's how you learn, from talking to other people.
Yeah. And, like, I like literally seeing with my eyes in real life how somebody is reacting to the music, like being able to see, like, oh, they're like, they perked up at that part, or like, oh, they like that part hit them hard. I can see a reaction to it. And you don't get that if I just, like, send a link out into the ether and they check it out when they check it out. And, like, next time I see them, like, oh yeah, sounds good. Like, I really, like, I don't know, maybe it's selfish, but, like, if I'm sharing it with someone ahead of time, like, I want there to be something in it for me. Like, I want to get some feedback out of that.
Yeah. Plus, if you don't want it to leak, you have to just show it to them in your car, right? You can't be sending stuff around, because it's just gonna end up somewhere.
Yeah.
And God forbid you show it to someone not a songwriter, Has that ever happened where you show it to someone who's like not a songwriter and they're like, oh, why didn't you try like doing this in this part? And you're like,
I mean, honestly, nobody's ever told me anything sucked to my face, and I don't think they would.
yeah.
So again, that's why, seeing some of the, organic feedback that's coming from the public is flattering, because it's like they could tell me, and I'm sure there are people out there that say it sucks, but they're not trying to be nice to me. They don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah. And, if people are saying that, I just assume they're unhappy or something's going on, because people on your level or higher, they will never say anything like that to you.
Yeah. And like, honestly, like people say it, but I genuinely, like, I don't really care that much about that type of feedback from the outside. Like, I've never put out music that I wasn't so personally happy and satisfied and in love with that I would let something like that get to me. You know what I mean? Like, if I had doubts about something I was putting out and then got negative feedback on that, I think it would kind of like validate those doubts. But I go into it, I'm like, I love this stuff. If you don't, like, all good, but like, that's on you, because I think it rocks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Plus, everyone's entitled to their opinion, right?
Yeah. And I wouldn't put out anything if I felt any less than that.
Like, I used to be one of those kids who was on the internet saying everything sucks that I didn't like or had never heard before. So I think that's something people go through as well.
Oh, for sure. And like, again, I mean, we're an older band's fourth LP. Like, I'm sure at this point we like the old stuff better territory. So it's all good. It's the life cycle.
Do you get any of that?
Shockingly, not really. Which is very fortunate. Like, the fact that 1,000 Mile Stare songs go over just as well, if not better, than Cost of Living songs, which I mentioned was kind of like our, real turning point record in terms of like our success, is a blessing. I mean, people still checking out and being excited about the new material. I mean, that's every band's goal. We're definitely not a band that people are like, oh, I like the demo better. Like, nobody gives a fuck about the demo. Nobody gives a fuck about the first Amongst the Phil 7-inch. It kind of, like, maybe Crusade and maybe some of the split songs, but it really starts at Cost of Living, and really continued into 1,000 Mile Stare. And, fingers crossed that, people are still rocking with us on this new one.
Is there ever any pressure from the label or anyone else? Like, because, there's a number of years between records. Are they ever like, hey, you're going to do a new record? Or do you guys just get to decide when you're going to do things?
Zero pressure at all. And it was just like, let me know when. Like, that was it. I couldn't imagine a better, it being any other way. No pressure at all. But it was clear that if we wanted to, like, the opportunity was always there from Closed Casket, which made it was a very comfortable position to be in, to have that kind of support.
That's great, because number one, they're a great label, so you're an awesome company.
Yep.
And number two, you just get to decide how you're going to do things and when you're going to do things. And I mean, you have everything that you need. You have the fan base, you have the great music, you're getting good offers. Like, it's all right there.
Yeah, we're in a very, very fortunate spot, and we all definitely recognize that, and we're all just thankful that we can still play, a hardcore fest in Atlanta with all of the best up and coming young bands active today that are, really the ones that are driving it forward for everybody, and, still get a warm reaction there, and still, earn a slot like we had at something like that.
So let's talk about what we've got coming up. Now, we know we have the new record coming May 26th, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got that. We've got some select dates in June and July. Yes.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Tell us about that.
No, that's really it. We wanted to announce as much as possible all at once, to kind of, show people that, like, we are getting out there to support this material as best we can. And yeah, it's all exciting stuff, man. Like, we're doing Adjacent Fest in Atlantic City, which is this big outdoor festival that is being headlined by the Blink-182 Turnstile Tour, literally the weekend after the record comes out, which is a huge opportunity, and it's going to be a super fun way to kind of celebrate the release and kind of culminate the release on a stage much bigger than we're used to playing. So we got that coming up. We're going to Chicago and Detroit shortly after. both cities that were like top of the list for us to get back to, mostly because Chicago, we had to cancel our last opportunity to play there, which was fucking heartbreaking. But
What happened?
Knock Loose asked us to play their kind of like, shows are back show when shows started coming back. And at the Metro, it was going to be a great show. And there was a borderline hurricane in New York the night of our flight, and we got stranded at LaGuardia Airport while the highways were shut down and we couldn't get out of there. And it was a fucking disaster, man. And ultimately had to cancel the show. And it stung so bad because we were starved for shows at that point. I think we hadn't played a show at all yet. That was going to be our first show back in years since the pandemic. So to get it kind of taken away from us at the last minute again kind of stung extra hard. And like, we are not in the business of canceling shows. We have gone through extensive lengths to avoid dropping shows. I think it might have been the second show we ever dropped, but all this to say, like, it was very important to us that we make it up to Chicago. And then, so we got a great opportunity to do that with Drain and Never Ending Game and Drug Church and a bunch of great bands. We're doing Tied Down Fest in Detroit the following day, which Detroit's a city that has always been good to us, even though we've only played it twice, I believe. The lineup is stacked with a lot of friends bands. So we're looking forward to that. We're going back to Philly with just a headlining show with some great, like regional bands, Volcano, Simulacra, and Scarab, bands that like I personally think are fucking sick, and we're like excited to see, let alone play with. So we have a great lineup there. And Philly has always been good to us too, whether it was some of our, This Is Hardcore Fest sets, which were some of the best sets the band's ever had, or, our last show playing at the First Unitarian Church, which is, legendary venue. Philly's always given us some of the best shows we've had. So we're excited to get back there.
Philly is a great city for hardcore and a great city for music in general. I grew up outside the city and
cool. Yeah,
I lived in the city for a long time. So I my heart is always there.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. And we playing the church, I think it was 2019 or early 2020. Yeah, we played a headliner at the church, which was like, that's like one of those venues, right? That's like playing Gilman Street in the Bay Area, or CBGB's in New York, when that was still around. Like Philly, the church is that for Philly, so that was like an extra cool one, and then to have like an amazing show there was even better. So that was another one where it's like, all right, we got to go back to Philly on a new record, and then we're hitting the West Coast. We're doing 2 shows in Southern California. One at Chain Reaction, which is, similar to, the church example of like, a venue that we've kind of always, watched cool shows happen at from the East Coast. So having an opportunity to play there is exciting. And then a bigger show in LA proper at 1720 with Mind Force and Take Offense, 2 great bands that we've been friends with for a long time. So yeah, man, I mean, we really got, we couldn't be happier with the amount of shows and who they're with and where they are. We're I guess we're taking a quality over quantity approach here, but feel really good about all the everything we have coming up. Amazing.
So what do you do outside of the band? What are some of the things you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard to say because the band has been so consuming for the last couple months leading up to this rollout. But I train Muay Thai, kickboxing, three times a week. Yeah, not no aspirations to compete or anything like that. But I'm part of a great gym in Bushwick called Physical Culture Collective / Diamond Heart. That's actually run by Gavin Van Vlack from Burn.
Nice.
And kind of attracts a lot of people, musicians, artists, people who may not have gotten into a combat sport if not for someone kind of filtering it for them. So I do that, and that's a pretty big part of my life. I take that. I value the time I put into that. Have a great girlfriend here in Brooklyn I spend a lot of time with. We love going to the beach.
Do you guys live together?
Shortly.
Oh,
yeah, shortly.
Have you ever lived with a partner before?
I have not.
Me neither. It almost happened a couple times, but hey, we didn't make it.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, we started dating just before the pandemic, so that was like a good stress test. Like, if it wasn't going to work, we were going to know pretty quick.
So I was going to ask a follow-up question and say, are you nervous? But it sounds like no, because it's been field tested, right?
Yeah, we'll be fine.
That's good. And the Muay Thai is good. You keep the mind and body sharp, right?
Yeah, it's great, man. It's a great way to clear your head after work, get a great workout. There's a social aspect. I meet a lot of cool people there that kind of keep you engaged and keep you going. My only regret is that I didn't find it earlier in life, because, starting a combat sport in your 30s, your body is not, your body definitely reminds you that you should have started earlier.
Yeah, I'm 41 now, and I make myself do like this little workout at home just to not completely fall apart, but you start to feel it. Yeah,
listen, man, if you want to come check out a class, I'm happy to bring you down.
I think I might have to do that at some point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Brian, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I'm really excited for the new record. I think a lot of people out there are, and I can't wait for more. So thank you.
Hey, thank you, man. This was a blast. I appreciate your enthusiasm about the record and everything we're doing. And thanks for all the kind words and the support.
And there you have it. Brian Audley. Great guy. Great band. Excellent conversation. Glad I got to speak to Brian. Glad Incendiary seems to be doing so well. Those pictures of them playing at Jason Fest look really cool. Them out on, the beach in the background. The album is just killer. I love the whole album, but that last breakdown in the first song on the record, I can't remember the name of the song. Holy cow. I just kept rewinding that on Spotify the other day and listening to it. Really awesome band, I always think of 2018. It was a hard year for me, but I look back on it fondly now because I just used to walk around all the time listening to Spotify radio, discovering a ton of new bands, sending them all to Tommy and telling him to listen to them because he was the only person that would actually listen to them and engage in conversation with me. And Incendiary was one of those bands. I remember hearing Front Toward Enemy for the first time, and I was like, whoa, who are these guys? And where have I been all these years? Awesome stuff. So thank you so much, Brian, for coming on the show. All right, so here's how I'm doing. Wait, no. First, let me ask, how are you doing out there, huh? How are you doing? Okay, I hope. Me, I'm busy. There's a lot of stuff going on here. It's a Wednesday before the Darling Fire Tour as I record this. I'm scrambling to get a bunch of work done. And then I'm going to pack, and then I got to pack all the equipment. It's going to be a long night, but I'm really excited to play these shows. These will be the first shows I've played in 7 years, and I've been preparing a lot for it, so I'm ready. As long as I walk up on that stage and plug everything in and it works, I'm ready. I'm ready to go, and I'm really excited to play because the Darling Fire is awesome, and I'm happy to be part of the band. And we get to be out with Spotlights. And I'm really excited to see them. I haven't seen them yet, but their new record is easily one of my favorites of the year. So it's going to be a really, really fun 7 days, and I can't wait. So if you are in the Southeast, Florida, and South Carolina, come to a show, say hi. As you listen to this right now, I am on the tour, and I hope I'm having a good time. But as I record this, New York City is enveloped in smoke. Do you see this thing on the news? Canada wildfires. Somehow all the smoke has made it to New York City. And depending on when you look outside, it can look kind of normal or it can look like Silent Hill out there. Earlier today, it was 2 p.m. and I looked outside and everything was dark and yellow and covered in smoke. And I know this is bad and, climate disaster and all that stuff, but it looked cool. Okay, it looked cool. I went outside for a second and just took a look around, and I don't know, call me crazy, but it just made me want to go outside and check things out. Otherwise, everything's all right. I'm getting over being sick. Thank goodness I got sick right before the tour and not on the tour, because I don't want to be sick and miserable on my first tour in God knows how many years. And I'm feeling good. I'm excited to play these shows. Everything else is going good in life. No complaints right now. So that's it. that is it. And I'm back next week with a new episode and a new guest. So thanks everybody for listening. And until next time.